now we get into something that I've been really looking forward to, because the next musician we're going to be talking about is, is really an unbelievable singer. And he's kind of, I think, just kind of a hard rock icon. And so I wanted to see where he would fit, not only in my list, but your list of the 10 greatest male hard rock singers. And I say male because I feel like it's kind of hard to compare the female vocals and the male vocals, especially in the genre of hard rock. So I'm curious where he is going to rank in our list.
Oh, yeah.
So would you want to just do we'll do number 10 and then my number 10, your number 10?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this is Ryan
good.
and our
draft.
Right. This is our lists of the 10 greatest male hard rock singers. We'll start with our unofficial co-host, Mr. Ryan.
So this is the one that I was telling you we haven't talked to each other too much about this, other than just, hey, you're not going to have this one, or hey, I'm going to have this one. This is the one I don't think you're going to have, Sebastian Bach.
Holy shit, that's my number 10.
No fucking way. Holy fuck. Okay, that's genuine, guys. I promise.
Yeah.
Oh my! I was watching a video of I Remember You live at Wembley, and I'm like, "There's no way he's not going on my list, man." And he was just. I kind of feel like Skid Row was just kind of like they were always there. You've heard of them, but they were never talked about like they were as big as they actually were.
Well, I think their music hasn't stood the test of time super well. But when you go back and you listen to, and I was listening to 18 in Life. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Sebastian Bach's vocals are perfect.
Really, really tight.
Yeah, everything about his vocal performance is really impressive. And I remember he did a cover of a Jeff Buckley song. Mm-hmm. And as people that listen to the show know, I mean, Jeff Buckley is my favorite singer of all time. And he covered that song. It was Eternal Life by Jeff Buckley. He covered it amazingly well. So while Skid Row is not a band that I come back to, I always thought Sebastian Bach was just brilliant.
Oh, he's got to be there just for talent alone, I feel like. It's just exactly what you were saying, dude. His live performances, just as a performer, he's up there owning the stage, but he's doing it in a way that makes it fun for the crowd. He's not overly cocky or anything like that. He's just having a good time.
Yeah. No, he and I remember I didn't even listen. I heard about him before I listened to his music, in the sense because he was always on those VH1 shows, whether it was they did that celebrity, super group tribute, whatever, or I think he hosted the VH1 40 Greatest Metal Songs.
Yeah.
So I know I feel like I know him better as a
person, or I guess individual. Yeah,
exactly.
Interesting. Wow, I'm so glad we matched on that.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
I was what if Sebastian Bach is the guy that Ryan was talking about?
Hell yeah. I can't believe that happened.
Who's your number 9 guy?
David Lee Roth.
Lights the menorah.
But he's, not a whole lot to explain. I feel like everyone's heard of him and knows a lot about. Well, for the podcast sake, I'll explain. But I think he's just the perfect complement to Eddie's guitar playing. And it's just, he was just an icon, from that time period where they just made their style of music just really cool, and Eddie was that stereotypical lead front man that was just badass.
Yeah, I think that and I thought about that. I was actually thinking of putting Sammy Hagar in. I was because I think David Lee Roth, if we're talking about the greatest frontman, I agree with you. Sure. But I just don't think he has the vocal chops of some other people in the list.
I get that completely. Yeah.
But to me, and the reason Sammy Hagar is on this list is because to me I want to talk to you about actually this whole situation later, but I think that to me, Sammy Hagar was great with Van Halen. They have some hits. I think David Lee Roth is the voice of Van Halen.
Sure, exactly. And no one sounds like him. It's kind of crazy.
No, and he does have that little scream he would do, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I did it horribly. Yeah.
Or it's and it's what was it? It was a lot on their first album. We'd be I apologize for all the listeners for that, by the way.
What's the one about the ice cream man? I just think it's one of the blues songs from their first album. Just here comes the ice cream man.
Yeah. This time when I'm passing by. So my number 9 was Roger Daltrey from The Who.
Nice.
It was one of those things that
I feel better about my list now.
Yeah, he's got a really phenomenal, and I think that because I would consider The Who they have enough hard rock songs where I really consider them, and they're just very influential. It's one of those early great hard rock bands.
Absolutely.
And just the power of his vocals, his influence. I think when The Who is obviously a phenomenal band. So not really much else to say. That I just think he was a great singer, and hugely influential.
And just to add to kind of like your point about, hard rock is the Who hard rock. Especially considering like what other bands were doing at the same time, they were heavy as fuck. Like,
oh yeah, like My Generation.
Like no other band was doing that.
It like starts off as like this boppy song, and then like Keith Moon just goes fucking nuts on it. Yeah. I think I'm curious to how we'll do with number 8, but I'll let you go. You first.
I'm staying in the same neighborhood of people. I'm going with Axl Rose. We've gone into him on another pod, but it's kind of self-explanatory. I think these two, between him and David, I was like, they're just, maybe I was coming at it too much from the front man point of view, but Axl, he really did have a good voice too. Like, and he was just so. Did he and Cornell have the same vocal coach? Because they did a lot of the same stuff. I can't remember if that was like a factor or not.
It wouldn't surprise me because they both had like, huge ranges.
Yeah.
But I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, they kind of do that same. I don't know. It's that's why he's there for me. Yeah. He just played the part.
And I'm gonna expand on it because he is on my list, but
nice.
Not quite yet. My number 8 was Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden.
Nice. He was one of my honorable mentions, and I wish. Looking back at it, I'll let you kind of touch why you put him on there.
Oh, who were your honorable mentions? I was thinking about that. I was like, because I had a couple. Who were your honorable mentions?
Eddie Vedder. I'm sorry.
You didn't even say his name right.
Eddie
Vedder.
Sorry, I was so nervous about saying his name.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't have my honorable mentions listed down here, so I can't really go down the list. But he was definitely one that I thought about.
Yeah.
So.
I had I can't remember his name, but the singer of Living Colour. He was on my honorable, and also Rob Halford was from Judas Priest. But yeah, the reason I chose Bruce Dickinson at number 8 is just because his power was just unbelievable, and I think from that whole I think it was called the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah,
I think he was just easily the best singer.
Dude, Number of the Beast is one of the best, just front to finish 80s metal albums of all time. Like it probably has to be actually like my album of the 80s. It kind of that was the 80s right there.
Yeah, and that's not even a hot take. I mean, I think that's a pretty fair. I think a lot of people would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So I'll say my number 7 first because you mentioned him.
Sure.
You did him dirty by only making him an honorable mention, but I have Eddie Vedder at number 7.
Yeah.
And I think his voice definitely has gotten caricatured because it was so unique and different, and obviously Chad Kroeger and Scott Stapp kind of dragged it through the mud with their imitations of it, or I should say emulation. But really he is an unbelievable vocalist and really versatile. And if you listen to the song Black off their first album, I mean, that's, I think, an all-time great vocal performance. So, Eddie Vedder and just his influence and his uniqueness and, definitely he's my number 7.
Rock and roll. I feel a little bad about this number 7 because he's 90s, but he's a little bit more after. But Dave Grohl. Yeah, I wasn't thinking. I don't think when I put this one down because Dave, did a lot more stuff. Obviously, with singing in the 2000s.
But I mean, it has something to do with the 90s. Because this is the 20th century. I completely forgot to mention. I'm so sorry, Ren, for interrupting you. This list is I said of the 20th century. That's why I left out Serge Tankian. I didn't put him on the list. So my sincere apologies. And my issue with Dave Grohl on your list has nothing to do with him being a 90s singer or not a 90s singer. I just don't think he's a great singer.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he's good. He's passable, but I just don't think he's as good as the other people that you've mentioned. And
forgive me because I was putting this list together a little bit, late at night, and it's a horrible backtrack. But I don't know, Dave's at least when he made the transition, I feel like, and the Foos, was it The Living in the Color? Was that the album that came out?
Was it Color and Shape?
Color and Shape.
The one that came out in 97?
Yeah, the one that came out in 97. Yeah. I don't know. It was just crazy to me that Dave can play drums and now he's a front man and he's killing it. And maybe I think a little bit more on my list for stuff he did after, but I don't know. I thought from the front man aspect here, I think 7, 8, and 9 are all just I'm thinking about it from a front man perspective.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about front man perspective, I totally agree. I mean, he's an unbelievable front man. Definitely probably the most identifiable rock musician with the 21st century.
Sure.
I just, like I said, just not. I think his strong suit is not his singing.
Gotcha.
But I mean, he's made it work.
He made it work.
He's one of the. He's one of the most successful rock artists in modern history. So
yeah.
What are we up to now? Number 6. I'll
Number
let you
6.
Get back to you going first.
This is where I put Layne.
Okay.
So if that's cool, I don't know if you want to go more into him too. Right now,
we'll circle back to him.
Circle back.
Just an FYI. I mean, in case you didn't listen to episode 13, which in the monologue, Layne Staley is the 3rd member of the Not Exactly 27 Club, the singer of Alice in Chains. So that's the reference that Ryan made there.
Yes. Yeah. We'll talk about it more, but dude, he's a killer. He's a killer. Who's your number 6?
Number 6, Ronnie James Dio.
Nice. Dio. Okay, Dio was another one of my honorable mentions.
Another one. He's one of those guys that like he's a metal singer's metal singer. You know what I mean? Like maybe unless you're a hard rock or metal fan, you're not gonna really know of Ronnie James Dio. But his influence to the genre is immense. You know the stuff he did. I mean, he famously replaced Ozzy Osbourne in Black Sabbath, and probably the only person in the world that could have done that and made a solid record. Obviously, it's not the sound that Black Sabbath fans are accustomed to, but it was still brilliant. His solo, he did some stuff with this band called Rainbow, which was founded by Richie Blackmore, the guitarist of Deep Purple.
Yeah, Deep Purple.
Man on the Silver Mountain is one of their big songs, and he does brilliant there. And then obviously Dio's solo stuff with like Holy Diver and Rainbow in the Dark. So yeah,
Holy Diver.
So yeah, and I know Killswitch Engage does a cover of that. So just really the power of his voice and his contribution. And another way that he contributed to rock music is he does the devil horn hand sign that anytime you go to a rock concert you'll see some drunk idiot holding up the devil horn. So he came up with that, or I shouldn't say he came up with that, but he brought it into rock music. So he's super influential in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Dude, going down this list now, oh my God. Last time, like, our draft was pretty even, but I'm liking your list so much better than mine right now.
Well, I think you just did, like, the front man approach, which isn't bad. I just went a different direction.
Yeah.
Who'd you get for number 5?
God, here's where I'm still, like, we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, but here's where hard rock, but I did Geddy Lee.
Okay. All right.
Just because of the fact the man
No, they're hard rock for sure.
Yeah, the man is doing what he's doing while playing bass and weird-ass time signatures, dude. Like, it's just crazy. I just feel like because of it, and I guess coming back, to where you approached it too, I was thinking, Geddy Lee, like, his range and just ability, like, his voice is just so great.
There's a picture of Geddy Lee. Now, Geddy Lee is like you and me is a nice Jewish boy. And there's a picture of him. My friend showed this to me in college. There's a picture of him when he's young, and he looks so much like me that, Ryan, if I find him to make you come up and look at my computer, let's see if I can find it. This is, I guess, a good example.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
You can tell it's him, but oh my gosh.
Is that me? Yeah.
Yeah, he's got our nose.
Here it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dude.
So
mirror image right here.
So we might be related, Geddy Lee and I. But yeah.
You Canadian, dude?
I hope not. No, I didn't say that. It's okay. No.
Hey, Josie.
Sorry, my dog has decided that she would like to say hi to Ryan.
It's good to see you. She's like, why is your list so bad?
She's like, why am I not on the list?
You have explaining to do. But yeah, so that was my 5. I guess up to your 5, right?
But no, Geddy Lee's a great singer. My number 5 was Mike Patton of Faith No More.
Nice.
And just really the versatility of him.
Mm-hmm.
He could be like a Dean Martin type crooner, or he could be like, the best thrash metal singer.
Yeah.
And like definitely listen to Angel Dust. I know we listened when we drove down to Florida that one time. I showed you that album. I mean, the Angel Dust is one of the best vocal performance albums that I've listened to. So he's my number 5, and he can also rap too.
Yeah, dude. I think we talked about them before, but just like they would have succeeded so well in maybe a different time period, but just because they played where they were planted, it was like this weird time period to be doing what they were doing from a funk perspective. But I agree.
Oh yeah, but they're another band that's like very influential.
Yes.
But yeah, along with like the Chili Peppers and Rage Against the Machine and Primus, and just one of those like Faith No More is one of those like really influential early 90s funk metal bands that like influenced nu metal immensely. But yeah, so who's your number 4?
Chris Cornell.
Let's fucking go. Is my number 4 too.
Yo, I feel like I'm back on track now, dude. It's a good sign when we're matching up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's self-explanatory almost in a way, too, where it's like this dude was just insanely talented just from a voice perspective. Like, his range was crazy, and, Soundgarden's discography just kind of speaks for itself when you're listening to that stuff.
And Soundgarden, they're one of the real OG, I think, grunge bands. I think they formed in '84.
Yeah.
And Chris Cornell, everything he touched, except for when he did an album with Timbaland, everything he touched was gold. I mean, stuff with Soundgarden, Temple the Dog that I mentioned, Audio Slave.
Yep.
Everything was brilliant. His solo stuff is brilliant. Did a very famous cover of Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
So there's not really much else to say, but Chris Cornell, also especially when he could fucking scream.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that kind of lends itself to, that was the one I felt good about, too, because we're talking hard rock vocalists, and it's just, I feel like a good hard rock vocalist is able to do everything. You're able to just hit those hot, not necessarily, screamo stuff, but just, pure emotion into your screams, and then just come back and sing beautifully, and he's the definition of that.
Yeah, because if you kind of use it like frosting, you know what I mean? It's not the bulk of the cake.
Exactly.
So... definitely, and I'm glad we have that overlap. So I'll start with the number 3 because I did choose Layne Staley, and cool. Obviously we'll talk about him in a little bit. But yeah, just brilliant, really.
Yeah.
Who's your number 3?
I think you'll like this one, Phil from Pantera.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did think about him. Yeah.
So he's an honorable mention for you.
Yeah, I'd say he's an honorable mention. His voice is super unique.
Yeah, obviously, I've talked about it, a few times in this podcast, but Avenged, my favorite band growing up. I got into Pantera later because I learned that was their inspiration, as much, similar to a lot of other heavier bands and the metalcore scene and stuff like that. But when you go back and watch live performances of Pantera, specifically in the mid '90s, and you kind of understand what Phil was going through, kind of similar to the drug stuff we were talking about earlier. He's putting his emotion into the those sets, going for an hour, screaming his guts out, I know he's not exactly the most talented singer per se, but he was out of left field. No one had really done what Pantera was doing before, they came on the scene.
Oh, yeah. No, Pantera, what's it, a vulgar display of power?
Yeah.
That's just one of those iconic, influential, metal albums. And obviously, I think Dimebag Darrell is probably the most associated with Pantera, but It's definitely Phil is right behind. Mm-hmm. And, I keep coming back to, the timbre of that scream is just, is accessible. Obviously it's not accessible to a pop audience, but just more to a casual rock fan. I think it can be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are we on now? Now we're not number 2
because you had Layne for your 3, right? Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we're at number 2, and here's where it becomes a little bit more for me, at least. I'm it'd be disrespectful if I didn't put him on this list. It's Metallica, so I'm not putting him number 1, but James Hetfield is going to be my guy here at number 2.
All right.
You're I can't believe I let this guy do this.
No, I like I said, if we're going because you're kind of going a direction that's not necessarily you're kind of looking at their influence and their showmanship. I think more than I'm just looking at them as pure vocalists.
Yeah.
Which I think that it's probably yours is more quantifiable because what the fuck do I know about singing? You know what I mean? Or what do I know about metal singing?
Yeah, and I guess I took hard rock. I was taking it a little bit to the left. Now I'm taking it to the right because Metallica's obviously. They're metal in some cases, but
they're metal for sure.
Yeah, but especially I guess if we're really talking about the stuff they did in the '80s, that shit was thrash, man. But but James also just the fact that he's able to bring it back from the growls and stuff like that, and he doesn't have a bad voice in my opinion. I think he actually has a good voice, and that's why I put him here also. But I just think his ability to be such a solid rhythm guitarist, write all these songs that have arguably stood the test of time. So yeah, he's my number 2.
Yeah, and he's one of those another unique metal vocalist that he was able to connect with pop audience. The Black Album had so many, mainstream hits.
Yeah. Who's your number 2?
My number 2, Axl Rose.
Nice. Okay, so you just had him a bit higher.
Yeah, because it's for me. I think the uniqueness, the influence, and just obviously not anymore, but. the range that he had in his heyday. I think that there's like some video on YouTube. I think we might have talked about this back when we talked about Use Your Illusion, but his range demonstrated on this YouTube video is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I just always just love listening to him. Unique voice, power.
Yeah.
The pitch is on point. So there's really not much else to say for that. So I'm excited to hear your number one, because I think we might have the same number one.
I hope.
Because you haven't said my number one, and have I said yours?
He's come up in the podcast, but we haven't talked about him yet. My number one is Steven Tyler.
Oh, get the fuck out. I don't want you on my podcast.
You don't want me on my podcast?
Or as a friend anymore, to be honest.
Dude, we've talked about this in band practice and stuff like that, where, I mean, again, I really thought this is the perfect avenue of great vocalist meets just generational band. And he was obviously the forefront of that, where they've over the 4 decades, they just banger after banger after banger. And Steven Tyler is just such in my opinion, just a great singer.
He is a great singer.
And he just goes he hits those highs, man. We've talked about guys that have range. If we're talking about range.
Does he hit them, or does he just try to hit them?
He screams once he gets too high.
And people are like, all right, we'll take it. It's and I don't want to. I remember being because I think it was 4 years old when I Don't Want to Miss a Thing came out. Mm-hmm. And I just remember just being so put off.
Really?
Yeah, by the screaming at the end. I was like, oh, this is a nice, sweet song. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, why would you do this to my vocals? By the way, I apologize again to the listeners for hearing me scream for twice.
Nah, dude, that's what they came here actually. They don't care about us talking about this. They just want to hear the screams.
Tyler impressions.
But he's my number one, man. So wait, who did you think that I had that you have?
I am shocked that you didn't have this next singer on, but I do want to talk about. I do think Steven Tyler is a very good singer, and I think an incredible front man, and Aerosmith is a really interesting band that they were able to have to put out huge hits in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I mean, that's very difficult to do. So props to them for that.
Sure.
But my number one's got to be Robert Plant.
He was one of my honorable mentions too, and I get it. I think when I was thinking of Zeppelin though too, I don't know. 'Cause this doesn't go with my the way I was thinking, because I've included some here that aren't hard rock, and when I was thinking of Zeppelin, I'm like, it's more rock to me. I don't know.
Well, I think that Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath are kind of regarded as the two bands that are most influential to the metal scene. Obviously, Black Sabbath is number one, but I wouldn't call Led Zeppelin heavy metal, but definitely a lot of their songs are
more hard rock,
especially in their first couple albums.
Yeah,
and it goes back to what you were talking about. I can't remember which artist you were talking about, but that was just very. Oh, when you mentioned the Who, at the time, nobody was doing heavier stuff. It was kind of the same thing as Zeppelin. If you look at it on the lens of maybe the 80s or 90s, even late 70s, maybe Led Zeppelin wouldn't be considered a hard rock band. But from what they were doing on Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, and even Immigrant Song on Led Zeppelin 3, that's definitely, I think, in the aggregate, way more, heavy than what else was going on in the rock world.
Sure, absolutely. I think I watched, I think it was them live in Madison Square Garden, 1976.
My mom was at that concert.
No way.
Not the concert.
But that was, now kind of thinking back to it, yeah, dude, my list is fucked. You should have been on here, but
no. Well, I listen. if we had the same list, there'd be nothing to talk about, and there would be nothing for me to yell at you about. So,
Oh, you've got a lot of ammo to work with now.
All right, so we did that. We went on that whole tangent just to get to the third member of the Not Exactly 27 Club, and that's Layne Staley.
Yeah.
I spent probably more time than I should have talking about them in the monologue, but Alice in Chains is one of my all-time favorite bands, and they've been one of my favorite bands for a decade and a half. So for you, when was the first time that you first listened to Alice in Chains?
The first time I listened to them was in Guitar Hero 2. I got that game when I was 9 or 10 years old, and it was Them Bones. I remember being a little freaked out because you know how every verse, and of course my mom decides to come in and how's your game? You liking your new video game? And she comes in on that song and is like, oh, is this the kind of music in the game?
I thought you were going to say that your mom starts singing along with Layne Staley, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
No, the story couldn't have gone that well. No, she's just sitting there like, who? What's going on here?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time I ever was introduced to Alice in Chains, and it became quickly actually one of my favorite songs to go back and play on the game, just because it was so different. Like I think that that verse is in like 3/4 time or something. What was it like?
So it's 7/4.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's 7/4 during or 7/8. I can't remember.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's 7/4 because Outshined by Soundgarden is 7/4.
Yeah.
Them Bones is 7/8 during the verse, but it's 4/4 during the chorus.
That's what it is, and I just remember getting confused on that. I was like, whoa, this is weird. Yeah. Like I'm not used to this. But
And we'll talk about Dirt in a little bit, but I think Them Bones is such a great opener for an album. Like, can you imagine just all of a sudden, yeah.
And then we'll go into it more too.
Yeah.
But like, his harmonies on that, it's so hypnotic, bro.
Oh my god. It's beautiful. And I think if there's anything that makes Alice in Chains special, it's those harmonies that
exactly
you don't hear a lot in grunge and metal bands.
Exactly.
And speaking of which, would you because I always had a problem with them being kind of considered a grunge band.
Yeah.
However, there's definitely some songs by them that I think are quintessential grunge songs. So I'm making a cop out, and I'm not going to answer this, but I'm going to ask you: would you consider them more grunge or metal?
Dude, this was the hardest question I feel like you asked me, at least to think about before I come on here, because there's some songs where it's like it's a 60-40 thing with grunge, and then there's some where it's a 60-40 thing with metal, where it's like it's probably why people like them a lot. The guitar can be more chuggy and interesting, but his voice along with the guitar and the chorus is very, like I mentioned, hypnotic. It just makes them. So I'd say it really does vary by song. I'd say if I was gun to my head, if I had to choose one way versus the other, I'm kind of leaning more towards like the metal side.
Yeah. Because like for me, like Man in the Box, which is probably their signature song. Damn, I just burned that episode. But to me, that's a metal song. Whereas like, and I would say, but like Wood and Down in a Hole to me like are more like that. That's grunge.
That's grunge right there.
But the vast majority of Dirt is metal. But then they did like that whole acoustic EP, which is brilliant. So
was it Sap?
They did Sap, and then that was their first acoustic EP, which has, by the way, Ann Wilson does backing vocals on one song, Ann Wilson of Heart, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then they did Jar of Flies.
Yeah.
I mean, just a phenomenal record. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we get into like your favorite albums, favorite songs, and whatnot, it's like, what is it about Layne Staley that made him, both high on our lists and high on a lot of people's lists, and just like, anytime that you watch an Alice in Chains live video on YouTube, every comment will be like how amazing Layne was. Like, what made him so special?
I think the first word that comes to my mind is power.
Yeah.
He has so much power in his voice that just fits the aura of their song so well. Like a lot of guys will have power but lose the range, or they focus on the range and they lose the power. But that combined with his ability, kind of what we touched on, the harmonies. His voice sounds perfect in like the thirds to fifth things they do, where like I know a lot of, if you don't know music theory, it's basically just the way he'll go back and forth. The harmony will just change, being a third higher than what he's singing to a fifth, and going back and forth. A lot of other vocalists doing that would sound cheesy. But the way he does it, it fits the music so well.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, I'm going to say definitely power, but another word I'd say is vibrato.
Yes.
Like, I think that because when he's belting out songs like Man in the Box or Wood, those choruses like you have, or like the chorus of Rooster, you have that power. But then when he kind of takes it back and he's not, hitting those high notes, he does that deep growl, which is accompanied with this unbelievable vibrato.
Yeah.
And it's dark. Like I think like it's dark, and then the power accentuates the metal in that regard, and then the low growl is dark and accentuates the metal in that way. I think that's what makes him such an amazing metal singer.
Yeah, because it's almost like it's a weird. I'm gonna describe this the best way I can sound. His voice is almost like another instrument in the mix. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. Just like if obviously singing is its own instrument in its own, but like it sounds just like one of the other guitars or one of the other. I don't know, just jugs that's happening in the background.
And one thing they did, not on like Facelift, their first album, but a little bit on Dirt, and definitely like on Jar of Flies, and then their self-titled, is that what they would do is that Jerry was singing probably more.
Yeah.
But because he has like such kind of like I don't want to say generic voice, but like just it's a good voice, but it's just like it accompanies the music. But then you bring in Layne, and it's like you said, like it's like adding a lead guitarist.
It's almost like a dark and light. You've got the dark and the light coming in, like a normal. Oh, this person's sane. Yeah, singing the harmony. and
speaking of Jerry and Layne, and they had such a complicated relationship, but they did love each other.
Yeah.
I was reading about this, and I think you'd really appreciate it. That when Layne Staley died, when they found him. He had an 8-year-old cat, or a 10-year-old cat.
Didn't know this.
And Jerry adopted the cat.
Aww.
And raised it for another 8 years. Died when it was 18.
Lived a long, healthy life.
And that's when I realized that
they cared about each other.
They cared about each other, but the cat is the most metal animal.
Absolutely, bro. Imagine just, oh, shit, there goes my human. Guess I got to last another 8 years.
And just like their personality, they're like alienated and bitter, but like they're kind of like
I'll keep
soft and cuddly. Like they're the metal animals. Like my dog right here is, she's a teeny bopper.
Dude, my cat's not metal. I wish she was more metal, but Dov came over with a couple other members of the band the other day, and she just sat there like, what? Other people exist? I gotta get out of here.
But that's so metal. Other people exist. I don't like this.
But
let me go meow about it.
Dude, I want to sample her at one point and just get her into a song. Like I'm gonna morph the sound and make sure no one recognizes it. Right. We're going on a tangent. I know.
All right, let's not have cat sounds in our music. But I guess that'd be like a good Beach Boys tribute.
There you go.
And pet sounds.
What's more metal than that?
So first let's do albums. Could you speak on Alice in Chains' albums, or maybe not?
I know like the songs and stuff like that. The albums, everything kind of gets jumbled together because I know they came out with a '92 album. Was that
Dirt?
92 was Dirt.
Yeah, Facelift was 1990.
90 was gotcha.
And then they had Jar of Flies in '94, which is an EP, but it's long enough and brilliant enough that people usually kind of talk about it as a full-length album. And then they're self-titled, which I found out today is nicknamed Tripod.
Really?
Because I didn't know this, that there's on their self-titled, there's on the cover of the album, there's a 3-legged dog that is like, its name was Tripod.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Also, was that their last album before they kind of just went off the face of the earth?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so I know a little bit.
Yeah. So that's it's tragic. So I could kind of talk about that end like 95 to 2002, but there was some beautiful moments in there. Like there was their Unplugged performance, which I think Nirvana kind of is more associated with Unplugged, but there's some brilliant moments there. Especially like, have you heard the song Nutshell before?
Yeah, I've heard Nutshell.
I mean, which is I think Rolling Stone ranked like the number 9 most sad song of all time.
Yeah, dude, that one I like listened to halfway through and I was like, gosh, like. It's Saturday. I gotta be more happy than this.
That's one of those songs that like it definitely gets me going a little bit. But what are your favorite Alice in Chains songs?
So we had this joke. This is my favorite. So in high school, me and all my buddies had the same guitar class where we just kind of just goofed off the last period of the day. And every time one of us would come to the door, someone would just go, "Here comes the rooster." And we like.
So who was the rooster?
Anybody who came to the class last.
Gotcha.
But we just thought that was the first time I think I seriously started listening to Alice in Chains, and like obviously I told you I heard them before, but this is the first time I really started listening to them, and we all thought Rooster was just like, that's the best song of all time. Like when we, at least in that part of our lives, it's just crazy deep meaning behind it. Obviously, I believe they wrote it for one of their dads because he was a veteran.
Yep. In Vietnam, yeah. Jerry's dad.
Jerry's dad, exactly. Yeah, but Rooster's awesome. We talked about Man in the Box, Them Bones, Wood. Down in the Hole is like I didn't like that one like for like the first part of my life, and now as an older person, I think I'm starting to kind of get it a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that might be their only song like it's explicitly about sex.
Yeah. Down.
Yeah. And of course it's like a dark metal song about it because
there's this cool.
Because why not? Why not?
Why not? But there's also a cool key change in the middle there in the chorus too, where I'm like, ooh.
Oh, there's a key change. Really? I'm trying.
There's a key change. I
wait from going in from the verse to the chorus.
Verse to chorus. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool little key change, and then I Stay Away. I really like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the most. I'll kind of listen to that sometimes in the gym. Like I know it's not a traditional gym song, but like it's ballsy to put strings in there, but it fits so well.
It does, and that's a song, and that's kind of when you get that you can make a metal song.
Yeah.
And then no distortion, no guitar solos. That's an acoustic song with orchestra, and that is one of the most metal songs.
Absolutely, you're sitting there. It's a very common chord progression. I think it's just going C, D, E, but it's like the emphasis and like the placement of the strings, like we talked about, and just I don't know. It's just so it makes you want to run through a wall. I don't know.
All right, well, Ryan. Well, I mean, I can't really help you with that problem. That's above my pay grade. But like at the end of that song when he just like kind of screams I Stay Away, like that's, I mean, it doesn't get more metal than that.
No.
I agree. I think I Stay Away is such an underrated song.
It is.
I'm trying to think for me what my favorite songs would be. I mean, just so many. You know what? I love Junkhead. Did you listen to that?
I actually didn't listen to Junkhead, or I've probably heard it, but just didn't. Not on the top of my head right now.
Yeah, that song is just it's about I mean, it's about what it sounds like it is. It's about Layne Staley's drug addiction. Yeah, about heroin. And so that's a brilliant song. I'm trying to think other ones that are that you haven't mentioned.
I got the easy ones. I feel like
I'm trying to think. There's No Excuses.
No Excuses. Yeah, that's a good one.
And that's a song where Jerry and Layne sing the entire song in tandem. And I think that song's about their friendship and with what they're going through. Jerry with alcoholism, Layne with his heroin addiction.
Interesting.
And the last, I got two more questions for you.
Yeah.
So how do you think that, Alice in Chains' legacy has manifested itself?
It's darkly beautiful. I think that's kind of, the 10,000 foot view. If we want to go deeper, it's not in the way of the other Seattle bands where they're approaching this metal territory as discussed, but you could tell that wasn't their roots. It was more of an avenue they took in some of the songs at being that grunge band that they were. But I know we just talked about them being metal, but I don't think that was their intention. I think their persona was a little bit of that darker, gloomier, just grunge feel, but they ended up just going metal because of the way their lives were going, and that's just kind of what came out in their music.
Yeah. Interesting. And very interesting. But I think that I think what's made them so special is that I think they've influenced so many artists. Mm-hmm. I know we talked about that. There's a Creed song that really reminds me of. Mm-hmm. I think it's called Bullets. That and obviously not a metal band, Creed, but then I feel like there's probably so many. There's so many of those early 2000s metal bands that you would find at what was that? What was that that Earth Day Birthday?
Earth Day Birthday.
It was like a metal music festival in Orlando that they used to happen.
Oh my gosh!
Five Finger Death Punch and all those bands. I think probably
Godsmack.
Great. Well, God, I wonder because there's a song by Alice in Chains called Godsmack.
I'm pretty sure they're they're very heavily influenced from what I imagine.
Is their name directly from that song, or is that some kind of old Christian?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will say Godsmack from the limited. I don't listen to them a whole lot, but there's definitely Alice in Chains roots in there for sure. And
the last question that I have is, have you listened to Alice in Chains with their new singer?
Not until the car ride over here, and I couldn't actually name the song, but it was one of their more popular ones from the late 2000s, I want to say.
Yeah, I was looking up. They had a lot of hits with William Duvall, who's a great singer, by the way.
He sounded very similar. I was surprised.
Yeah. And that's another thing I was thinking about is I think that when you're replacing when a band goes on without a certain musician and that musician gets replaced, mm-hmm. I think more than anything the hardest member to replace is a singer.
Absolutely.
And I was trying to think of if there's one band that probably did it in a way that they were able to maintain their status, their influence, their legacy, all the things.
Yeah.
It would be AC/DC. With Bon Scott to Brian Johnson. I think that Back in Black is a legendary album, and then Highway to Hell is, and they have two different singers.
That's a good point.
Other than that, even when it's a smooth transition, David Lee Roth to Sammy Hagar,
that was the one I was going to say,
or Ozzy to Ronnie James Dio, I still think that it's not the same.
It's not. No, there's a lot more cases of times that it really didn't work out than cases obviously that where it worked out. So I agree. They at least I've only heard a couple songs of the new guy, but based off of what I've heard, I don't even think it's necessarily a bad transition. I just think it's kind of what we talked about on previous podcasts, where you can't replace the lore or like the person. And I feel like Layne was just so interesting. It sucks for the reason why it was interesting, but there's no story behind, at least from my understanding. I don't really know a whole lot about their new stuff, but
no, for sure. Because like when you're a fan of music, it's not. I mean, obviously you're a fan of the song, but there's like there's something greater than just like an individual song. There's like the interpersonal component of it that really I think draws people to it, and you know, the humanity is kind of is removed a bit. You know, when a member dies or is just like replaced. And that's why it's like, you know, I obviously I don't think Anthony Kiedis is the greatest singer in the world, but I can't think of a single other person that could sing for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know what I mean?
No.
But yeah, so that's all the questions I have. I think this is definitely the longest interview that I've done.
We went into this being like, yeah, it won't be too long.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's all good. But Ryan, this has been so much fun. You are the unofficial co-host of Hotcakes from a 90s Stand.
I'll die on that throne.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, yeah, die on that throne, then you get reborn as that official co-host. But yeah,
Hey-o.
But yeah, much love. Thank you so much for coming and just being an incredible guest and having so much fun and making my dog really happy to want to come over and say hi to you multiple times throughout the episode. But yeah, man, I appreciate you, and yeah, have a good one.
Thanks, dude. Always enjoy coming out here and being wrong.
Yeah, you are making a good Jewish husband, I can tell. All right, man. Take care.
You as well.
Thanks, y'all, for listening, and a special thanks to everyone who listened to all 3 parts. I, of course, want to thank my main man, Ryan Gilman, for being a brilliant guest as always. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and whatever it brings, hopefully music is involved. Again, I'm Dov Brenner, and this is Hotcakes from a 90s Stand. Take care.